Voters across the country are increasingly likely to vote blue, according to the latest poll. Still, inflation and abortion are top of mind in the battle for Congress. Yahoo Finance contributor Kevin Cirilli has the very latest on that. And Kevin, things have been looking good for the Democrats, but I guess you could argue they had so much ground to make. Is this really still going to mean that Democrats can hang on to the House?
Akiko, there was a new NBC News PBS Marist poll that came out, and it's really interesting to dive into these numbers to see the sentiment amongst voters. Chief among it is that, according to that PBS NewsHour Marist poll, 48% of voters would vote for Democrats compared with 44% for Republicans. Now, that's largely due to a shift amongst independent voters. We've spoken about this before in the last couple of days. President Biden delivering those remarks last Friday in Philadelphia is part of a broader effort, I'm told, by political strategists for him to speak directly to those independent voters, to frame the election as it relates less about the economy and more so about the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, as well as some other social issues. Now, amongst Democrats, abortion, according to this poll, would significantly mean that they are more likely to vote. They asked Democrats if they were more likely to vote as a result of that decision. 77% of Democrats said that they were more likely to vote because of the Supreme Court's ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade, compared with 42% of Republicans. The president is also enjoying a 10 percentage point bounce amongst approval rating from independents. His overall approval rating now at 41%.
Kevin, to what extent have the president's recent legislative wins helped tip those numbers as well?
Well, as it relates to inflation, that remains the top issue amongst collectively all voters, according to this poll. Of course, recently, the president signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act. He'll be also touting a bipartisan proposal for the CHIPS Act later this week in Ohio, a battleground state. But inflation is top of mind for Republicans. In fact, 40% of Republicans ranked that as their top issue. The next closest issue was immigration at 22%. Meanwhile, abortion is the top issue for Democrats, and just 13% of Democrats say that inflation is their top issue. But again, those key independent voters, how will they, number one, turn out? But secondly, who will they break for? Are these independents who typically will vote amongst social issues? That would help Democrats. But if it's amongst inflation, polls suggest that the economy typically tends to go more and break for more Republicans.
And Kevin, we're exactly 2 months out from the midterms. In many of these states, when you look at a place like Arizona or Pennsylvania, we've seen what would be considered more moderate Democrats running up against those who have gotten backing from the former President Trump. What's the one race that you're watching closely?
You know, I think the Pennsylvania Senate race is fascinating for so many reasons. I think I'm here in Washington, D.C., and when I talk to folks on the Republican side, especially as it relates to the Scott McConnell tiff that has gone public, I think that it's a case study in Pennsylvania between Dr. Oz and John Fetterman, because Dr. Oz has been pushing for Fetterman to debate him. McConnell has given him a lukewarm reception as it relates to an endorsement, and he's really trying to now modernize as he heads into Election Day. But Fetterman has really surged as a progressive as well. So whether or not they debate, that's the debate I want to cover and I want to watch, maybe even in person.
Okay, well, we'll be turning to you for all that coverage. Kevin Cirilli, as always, appreciate you joining us today.